Hello, Garland Nixon here, and I'm here with Scott Ritter and Andrei Martyanov. We got one or two things to talk about. What would a deal look like if it was possible to get a deal over Ukraine? Let's talk. Hello, Garland here with Scott and Andre. We got a lot to talk about and 1 hour to talk. So let's get going. Here's what I'm going to start with both of you guys. I'll start with you, Andre, and I'm going to say this. In your opinion, and everybody's talking about can Trump get a deal and blah, 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 things of that nature.
Yeah.
In the event that the Americans came to Moscow and sat down and said, we want a deal, we want out, we can't take it anymore, we need a deal, what is the minimum you think they're looking at? What happens, Andre?
It's been stated by Vladimir Putin, by Sergei Lavrov, by Dmitry Medvedev, by Mr. Belousov and Mr. Shoigu. I can continue this list forever. Mr. Patrushev. The minimum basic requirement is return to the framework of the Istanbul agreements, but with the consideration of the realities on the ground. Simple as that. So yeah, not well, bye bye. So Russia continues to do what she's doing. So simple as that. And any kind of this like outright lies of Washington Post that Trump called, Putin. Theoretically, he can call Putin as a private citizen. They know each other. They are not friends, of course, but they know each other. But Logan's Act obviously prevents him from, just basically doing anything, So we can see the hysteria around this. But the bottom line is very clear, and it never changed really, except for the, of course, realities on the ground. Period. There's nothing to discuss there.
Andre, do you think that the discussion will have to have, in December of 2021, the Russians sent a document, a written document to to NATO and the U.S., mainly the U.S., and said, we need to talk about, and if you look at that document, really the foundation of it was some kind of a European security agreement where we don't have to go through this anymore. This is what's going to happen on the border. This is going to be who's where. We negotiate, get the missiles off our border. We don't threaten, well, blah, blah, blah. Do you think they're going, how hard do you think the Russians would push for that? And a comprehensive European security agreement. Because the bottom line is this, that would help everybody. It would really be good for everybody, except, of course, the crazy neocons.
First, we have to separate two different tracks here. Ukrainian track, which is specifically Ukraine, or whatever will be left of it, and, of course, the larger issue of NATO expansion and things of this nature. I don't think so there will be any kind, considering the fact who Trump appointed today. And yesterday, there will be no normal negotiations about it. I mean, there will be a lot of, pathos-ridden rhetoric from those gung-hos, he appointed. But reality is, well, if they don't want to deal with this, too bad, But in terms of Ukraine, we know what's going to happen to Ukraine. As per the conditions presented by Russia in 2021, Russians will, continue to be largely sticking to this agenda, and nothing can change it. Simple as that.
Scott, based on one of the things, of some of the things we're saying, I'm going to assume things could change, but I think it's an assumption at this point that when Trump gets in, when he comes in on the 20th of January, that one of the things he's going to say to Ukraine is no more money. No more money. And that changes everything, because then Ukraine's kind of got to get a deal. I mean, Europe doesn't have the money. We hear all this cackling of these idiots, and we'll keep going without it. I don't know if you guys saw it. Bojo said we may have to send UK soldiers. Oh yeah, boy, that'll bail the Ukrainians out. A couple dozen soldiers from the UK. They might as well send their soccer hooligans at this point. There's probably a lot more of them. Scott, your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of people are putting far too much emphasis on the idea of the United States shutting off the spigot to Ukraine. Um, Trump, if you recall, he said he's going to make two magic phone calls, not one, but two. One would be to Ukraine, threatening to shut off the spigot. But the other one would be to Russia, that if Russia doesn't yield to Trump's demands, the spigot will be turned on. As Andrei has made it clear, Russia is going to yield to nothing but Russia's demands. And so this team of amateurs that and buffoons that Trump is assembling are going to be confronted with the fact that Russia is.
Sound issue for me?
No, for Scott. I can hear Scott got a little more.
No, you're also breaking up for some reason. Huh? You're kidding me.
Can
Sorry,
you hear me
guys.
now?
Oh, no, better.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, you're clear. I think it was in StreamYard. I think it was in the software that I'm using. Okay, go ahead, Scott. You're clear now.
All right. I don't know where it busted out, but probably about the time that I called the team of buffoons that Trump is assembling. They're going to be confronted with one of the more, difficult challenges that Trump's going to face in this first term, and that is a Russia that says no over and over and over again. Russia will not yield on this conflict. And then their question is, what will Trump do? Now, the smart thing for Trump to do would be to enter negotiations with Russia with no preconditions, and literally lead off by saying, before we start, I'm informing you that my administration is terminating the previous administration's policy of seeking the strategic defeat of Russia. Now, if you do that, Russia's going to be like, okay, let's talk. And now that they're not going to yield on Ukraine, but at least they'll be open to talking. There can be no dialogue of any nature as long as the United States maintains this notion that it seeks the strategic defeat of Russia in Ukraine. So Trump will have to reverse course on that, and he has not shown any proclivity to think that way. But the most important thing is that I think what we're going to see, to be honest, is that Trump is going to threaten Russia with the flooding of resources into Ukraine. This isn't going to be about Trump shutting down Ukrainian resources. This is going to be about Trump seeking to open the floodgates and putting pressure on Europe to open the floodgates too. There is going to be an extraordinarily dangerous period of time early on in the Trump administration where we will lurch very close to nuclear war. Because
Andrei, can I ask you to sign out and sign back in? I think it looks like it might be coming from yours. So just sign out. Well, I'll just remove you, and then you can, let me see. There we go. And if Andrei, just sign back in. Okay, so now Andrei can sign back in. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that. Yeah, trying to deal with this buzzing. All right, continue.
Was I buzzing? Or
no, it was Andrei.
Oh, okay. No, I think that we're going to see the Trump administration, because they welcome back, Andrei.
Oh, thank you.
Because they don't have the skill set to negotiate. This is where we could have used a Tulsi Gabbard. We could have used anybody who wasn't ideologically aligned with. I mean, Marco Rubio, if he is indeed the Secretary of State, is not somebody who's going to sit there and say, let's make a deal with Russia. This ridiculous buffoon that they just brought in from Fox News is not going to say, let's make a deal with Russia. These are people that are going to say, America has to be strong. America, strength. We have to do this, that, and the other thing. And Russia's going to go, you already tried it, it failed, but hey, you're welcome to keep doing it. We're just going to keep kicking Ukrainian ass. And oh, by the way, kicking NATO's ass. And if you want to bring it on, we'll nuke you. And then we're right back to square one again. At least the Biden administration had learned its lesson about the realities that are here. In this case, I honestly think we would have had a better chance of securing a peace with Ukraine and Russia with a Harris administration than we are with a Trump administration. I was hopeful, but those hopes have been dashed. He is literally putting the world's worst people in the critical decision-making positions that are necessary for any agreement.
Andre, I kind of see, and I felt no matter who was there, I felt that at some point we get to this particular spot, and here's the spot. The U.S. has to face the reality that they're not the hegemon anymore. At some point, there's an old saying about a narcissist. If you want to find out if somebody's a narcissist, tell them no. Narcissists hate when anybody says no, right? So my point is, at some point, the U.S. says, well, you have to do this. And Russia says, we ain't going to do it. And there's only one way to make us do it. You got to come to our border and fight us. We're fighting on our border. We're protecting our strategic border. And we ain't going to stop doing what we're doing. And there's only one way for you to try it. And you got to come here. And you got to stop us because the answer is no. And I felt like no matter what happened, at some point, the U.S. that can't face that it doesn't have the power is going to come face to face with somebody that says no, and that somebody is going to be Russia in Ukraine at some point. Andre.
Well, the situation with Ukraine is very clear. It is a NATO's defeat, and what is happening in the last 72 hours, I would say, yeah, that was expected. It's just a matter of what kind of cauldrons will be drawn by Russian army, and it's not an issue. It's tactical minutiae, essentially, operational minutiae, if you wish. People who are doing this, they know what they're doing. And the question is, for me, the marker was actually Doug McGregor. I thought if he would tap him as the national security advisor, then we have a chance. Now I saw the guy who is a gun-ho dude, which he thought. So yeah, it's a sad state. But the point is, and here I might maybe digress a little bit with Scott on this issue. Russians are good accountants. Okay, especially people from main chief operational directorate of the general staff. They know what Trump can actually provide. The only thing which United States can provide now, it still can, but it will be literally removing parts of what would be untouchable stocks already low of the U.S. Equipment, hardware, and I'm not sure about money. Money really do not buy much. So yeah, sure, Russians will demilitarize the United States completely. Per NATO, they are at the end of their technical capability. When you look at Luftwaffe or Royal Air Force, it is pathetic, really. So now these French guys who think that they're so clever, they say, oh, we're going to give you 6 Mirages. Okay. How long they're going to live, those 6 Mirages? Not long. So, and that's what we are expecting here. As per, again, the United States deciding to duke it out, I don't think so. Even those gun-hos in his administration, there is the issue of the Atlantic Wall, not Atlantic Wall of the World War II, which Hitler and then at some point of time Rommel was supervising it to build, against the possible invasion of the Allies. No, we're talking about Atlantic Wall as those shipping lanes of communications, because as much as the U.S. Navy is, well, it has issues. Okay, let's put it this way. It has excellent submarine force, but there is nothing in the U.S. Navy arsenal, not even close, which can stop what actually just Northern Fleet alone submarine force can unleash on the shipping lanes of communications. Okay, simple as that. And these are not Houthis, okay? They will be hypersonics flying, and you cannot stop that. And they're not going to be necessarily killing, what's the name of it? It will be strategic lift, which will be sunk completely. Simple as that.
Scott, that's the other thing about it, I guess, that I want to, let me run that by you. The Pentagon's realities, because yes, Trump can say, if you don't do this, if you don't do X, I'll do Y. The problem is when he says, oh yeah, well, I'm going to flood you with weapons. Pentagon says, yeah, we ain't got no really weapons to flood them with. We'll flood them with now. We're kind of behind, and there's a whole lot going on in the Middle East. See, that's the other issue that Trump has, the constraints. And I would say this, based on the election, based on what's going on, they ain't meeting their recruiting goals no time soon, people are not joining the military like they used to. So what about the issue of Trump maybe coming in with a big mouth, but severe restrictions in military and hardware and personnel capabilities, Scott?
But again, this is what I've been talking about all along. People tend to forget that Donald Trump is the man who redid America's nuclear employment plan and brought in new categories of nuclear weapons called usable nukes. The new B-61 bombs, the new W-76-2. Andre, I'll tell you this right now. The moment Russia fires Zircon missiles against American commercial shipping, the Atlantic Wall, America nukes Russia instantly. That's the reality of a Trump administration. If we can sit here and say that's suicide, we know what the result is. These people, these morons that he's brought in, actually have already voted in favor of. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State,
I know,
has already seen the nuclear employment plan. He knows what options will be given to the president in any scenario, and he has approved those options.
Well, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. The problem, of course, you cannot nuke Russia with B-61, which is gravity bomb, and when you have to deploy the F-35, which are carriers. You can nuke Russia only by means of the strategic deterrent, which is a Trident,
which Russia has no response to. Russia has no response, meaning that what we shoot the W-76-2 at, we will hit.
Oh no, it's primarily Russians are more worried about Trident. That's what they are worried about.
And this is a Trident. The W-76-2.
Yeah, I mean that's
and the second we fire a W-76-2 at Russia, they won't know that it's not a W-76 or a W-82. They don't know that it's a small yield, although it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Is a Trident coming in, and at that point in time, Russia launches on detect, and the world ends.
Response, head-on response.
And this is what I've been trying to tell the American people about from day one. We are as close as we have ever been about nuclear war. Donald Trump had a chance to avoid it. I did a meme about this right before the election. Drawing on the Avengers and all that. 1 in 14 million. Well, he just blew it. If he actually goes forward with this, with these people, with the policies that are being articulated, there's no good way out of it, because they will not back down. They will push. When you say they'll empty the arsenal, I'm telling you right now that there are categories of weapons that we have not provided Ukraine yet that we will.
Oh no, there will be. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because obviously you have to keep in mind, conventionally Russia doesn't care what will be deployed there. Well, they care, but they really don't care in the sense of the technology, because as already listened, anybody who is anybody in any kind of the operational position, they read American combat manuals, field manuals. I mean, they know what it is, so it's not like that. It doesn't matter how much or whatever will be categories of weapons. JASSMs, conventional, fine, it's what else? Tomahawks? It's an obsolete missile. And the question is now, what are you going to get in the response? That's the problem, which many people do not understand, or which I write since 2014. Russia has the conventional escalation dominance. That's the problem. And there is, they have been screaming like crazy about this whole issue with the nuclear weapons. Let me tell you this way. They call it, it was since 1990s, what was called the de-escalation by means of the nuclear explosions. At some point of time, when Russia was conventionally not ready, granted a lot of what was bluff on the American part, what you would have a couple of Tu-95 MCs launching taking off from Engels Air Base and fly towards Novaya Zemlya, with already, at that time, towards North Pole, and explode megaton class, weapons, just to demonstrate that we have it and we can go with it. This thing, which it's not there anymore, there's no necessity. because that's the problem. The issue here that conventional United States cannot win Russia, no matter how they try. That's the problem. And the question is that even those gun hoes whom he appointed today, even they, you know what, they should have some kind of debriefings on this matter. We cannot assume that the whole American intelligence community are morons. We cannot do that. There are some people who obviously understand, and at least they are accountants, and they have to come up and, like, you know what, Center for the Strategic and International Studies recently released the book, the whole book almost, you know, you can find it on their website. They counting numbers. Numbers are not there. And that's the problem. They can, yeah, B-61 is, well, yeah, it's a nuclear weapon, and Russians have their response to it, which is could be nuclear, but it is definitely not deliverable in the modern, basically a battlefield. It's Trident D2. That's the issue. Not even Minuteman, but Trident 2 D5, which is there. So let
me ask you this, Scott. Based on what you're seeing, because, you know, we're having a talk now, right? We're a long ways from January 20th, which means the situation could be vastly different, both in the Middle East and in, you know what I mean? The discussion we're having now is based on the context we're in right now. I feel that the context in both of those places is going to be markedly different by then, but we don't know how. Based on what you're seeing in the field right now, based on what you're seeing on the contact line, et cetera, what is the trajectory of things? How do you project things going forward over the next, say, 2 months in Ukraine?
Look, the Russians that I'm talking to are confident of a.
We got buzzing, but it's I don't know what it is. It's coming. Actually, it's coming from through the throughput from Andrei, and we signed him out and back.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think it's Andrei. I think this one actually might be.
It just.
That's CIA. Damn.
When Andrei did that bumping, it stopped. Whatever it was, it must have been a wire, because
I was beating up on some stuff here too. I was on a trip this past weekend, and I reassembled my computer.
Okay.
I have wires.
Andrei, play the bongo drums on your desk or whatever if it starts to go act up again. That seems to have helped. Okay, we're good. Let's roll.
All right.
Scott.
CIA, damn you! Stop interfering with our conversation.
All right, Scott. On the ground, what do you see?
First of all, we have to remember that the Russians aren't letting the calendar drive their operations. You see these ridiculous stories about Russia lost 1,500 guys yesterday. Today they lost 1,700. Well, the guys I'm talking to are saying, there's days where we have wounded, but there's days where we don't suffer any dead. There's days where we do suffer dead, and there's casualties and all this. But the idea that Russia's losing 1,700 guys a day is just ludicrous. Ukraine's losing that many on a bad day, but Russia's not. And this is the reality that's driving the Russian operations. These are very deliberate operations that are done very carefully. And it's frustratingly slow for people who are expecting Russia to have these, this giant, big. Russia is advancing steadily across the board. The other thing that the Russian commanders have said is that the Ukrainians are fighting extraordinarily hard, and that this is a very, very difficult fight. And the Ukrainians, there's many instances where the Russians just expect them to surrender or retreat, and they stand fast and they die. And this makes the going very slow as well. And so anybody who is thinking that automatically between now and January 20th, the Russians will have this massive breakthrough, big arrows, occupy Odessa, occupy Kharkov. No, I think the best Russia could hope for by January 20th is to reach the Dnipropetrovsk, boundary. They've got to go about 20 kilometers. That's still, at the pace that they're going right now, that's a tough thing to expect. The Ukrainian army is fully capable of sacrificing men for time. So if the goal of the Ukrainian military is to wait until January 20th in hopes that Trump somehow changes the equation to their betterment, which is a gamble because we really don't know what Trump's going to do. They can do that. The Ukrainians, I believe, are capable of sacrificing men for this. The trickier part is the Ukrainian society and the Ukrainian economy. This winter is going to be a very difficult winter for Ukraine. And I think, what is the number? 90% of the thermal power production capability has been shut down. We're going to be talking about tens of millions of people with no electricity, no power, no running water. This will be a disaster for them. And this could lead to the political collapse of the Ukrainian government, which then could, precipitate changes on the battlefield. But I think that let's say a stretch of warm weather comes in and we don't get societal collapse. I think anybody who thinks that Russia is going to change the entire dynamic of this war between now and January 20th is wrong. I think this is going to continue to be very deliberate offensive by the Russians, achieving their objectives, which is leading to the strategic defeat of Ukraine. But Russia's not going to hit the accelerator to try and do something by January 20th. And so we're just going to be left with Russia winning at a very gradual pace.
Yeah, one thing we've learned is that's how the Russians fight, slowly, deliberately, and overwhelming. I did want to ask you something, Andrei, and that is President Putin spoke at, I believe it was Valdai here for hours and on end, as he is wont to do recently. One of the things that I find interesting is he mentioned China. He referred to China as an ally. I've been reading that now Russia's now saying that Russia and China are going to jointly produce some military hardware. When I see some of these China hawks, I feel like I think like Afghanistan. Oh, we've got to get out of Afghanistan. Why? So we can start our next war in Ukraine. You know what I mean? Oh, we got to get out of Ukraine. Why? So we can start our next war in China. Well, it seems to me that both the Russians and the Chinese understand that dynamic, and they're kind of setting up so that it's not easy for the U.S. Anyway, your thoughts? The U.S., Russians, China. If you put it all together, they've signed this agreement with
North Korea. Yeah, it was ratified. Yeah, but
with Iran, there's a lot going on, and they seem to be real. Anyway, your thoughts on Russia and its allies seemingly building up a plan for the U.S.'s usual game. I'll drop this war that I lost and go start a new one.
Yeah, I mean, that's what United States does now. It is a pattern. And obviously, Trump is China hawk himself. So, and he has those gung-hos who will be primarily, swinging their fists at China. Russia is not going to allow China to go down. Chinese is a commercial society. It's obviously they are really good at producing things and mass producing things, including very complex things. It's a technologically advanced nation. And but of course, you need to provide them not only with the mass, but also with some tools which allow you to sustain whatever United States decides to do, in terms of attacking China. Many people do not know, but Vladimir Putin stated that Russia provided China, helped, as he said, to build the SPRN, the system of the early warning, for the missile attack. It's not just ballistic missiles. These are not only beyond horizon radar, which will look not only above the horizon, they look beyond the horizon and to a very long distance. So Russia was at it for a while now. What Chinese do not have at this stage is, of course, the operational experience in operating in the environment, for example, which United States can bring to bear, which is, of course, naval warfare, So, and you pretty much can sit there and literally use calculator, and you will know what will be the first salvo by the United States. Not difficult to really calculate. And you will have to look at the model and see for yourself what Chinese need to do to actually secure themselves, or at least blunt this, first salvo. Albeit, of course, you will see and you will know the warning on the accumulation of the forces and pre-deployment of the forces. United States is not gonna fight China on land. There is no way it can win it. But naval arm of the United States is powerful and still powerful, and they can definitely do some damage. And as they think, because instead of going to the real military studies field, they all read Clausewitz and Sun Tzu for some reason, which are pretty much irrelevant for the modern war. And they think that, oh yeah, we can compel the guys to do our will, we just show our massive, firepower. We launch like whatever, 800 JASSMs, and voila. Well, it's, how to put it politely, it's a really delusion, let's put it this way. And even the most, what it's called, exceptionalist hawks, they admit, you can look it up, those uber-patriotic American, nationalists or chauvinists, they say, yeah, if we fight China, we're going to lose a lot of things, like a lot. Well, yeah, that's the whole point. It's the exchange at which you produce. But China can take it. The United States cannot.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
I was watching some whatchamacallit where China has these factories where they can build, I think they said in 2 weeks they can make as many missiles as the US has in its fleet, like 1,000 missiles a day or something. And that's probably nothing.
Yeah, they have weapons which immediately many people do not understand. That tells you about the strategic thinking of the Pentagon, which is really not strategic thinking. They think that if you have 800 bases around the world, that you somehow are powerful. You have 800 soft targets. That's what you have. And knowing what the US air defense is, which is pretty much no air defense, you can be sure that the first thing which will go in flames will be Guam or whatever will be at that moment there. It's only 5 minutes, probably 7 minutes of flight, depending from whatever the southern parts of China you launch. And there you go. And the question now, and that's what many people forget, when Xi flew to Moscow. Remember the gigantic delegation, in 2021?
Yes.
They removed everybody, and the only military people, and Xi and Putin have been sitting there for several hours behind closed doors. I'm going out on a limb here, and I can tell you one thing. Something tells me that Russia gave already Kinzhal hypersonic missiles to China. Probably with the carriers, which could be now, we know, one of the things which many people do not understand. Su-34s are now capable of launch, not only capable, they've been launching them. And if USISR can, for example, track MiG-31s, MiG-31 is a large plane, okay?
Right.
And you know this. Oh, okay, if you have the MiG-31, which has nothing on the carriage except on the single missile on the belly, US will see it, and they immediately issue warning to Ukrainians. Now, Su-34s, of which Russia has hundreds, go figure what it carries. So it could be just regular operational tactical aircraft, or it could be, just prior to what is called threatening period. You have to look and see how many of MiG-31s and the Su-34s from Russia fly to be deployed in China. Simple as that. It's really simple. And the range of Kinzhal alone is 2,000 kilometers. This is outranging by number of miles the next JASSM, which is JASSM extended range, which will be 1,900 kilometers. This is the funniest part. So you can calculate how many F-18s on the carrier-based aviation, air wings of the U.S. carriers you need to launch what they think is decapitating, strike on the Chinese Navy, which is really funny. Chinese Army, Navy, whatever plan. So there you go. So it's missile exchange. Simple as that. That's what it's going to be. God forbid, of course.
Right, certainly. Your thoughts on the Russia-China alliance, Scott?
I mean, it's strategic in nature. I think my opinion is that China has, when I take a look at China's military, the lesson they've learned from Ukraine is there will be no long fight over Taiwan. That Taiwan will be finished in days, if not weeks. That they will overwhelm Taiwan with missile barrages that can't be intercepted. They will take out every major target. They will take out every major command and control node. They will suppress every aspect of Taiwan, and then they will flood Taiwan with troops, and Taiwan will be occupied before the U.S. Navy can leave San Diego. So I don't think there's going to be this missile exchange. I think the Chinese have made a decision that this is not going to be a long, drawn-out affair, that when the time comes to take Taiwan, they will take Taiwan with extreme violence and extreme rapidity to avoid the long, drawn-out campaign. Because even if you have this missile exchange concept, we're getting into a war of attrition, and it's a very dangerous concept. Again, I just want to remind everybody that the Biden administration has extended a line of strategic nuclear employment policy initiated with the Trump administration to China. We have redone our entire nuclear employment plan as we speak to be prepared to have a nuclear war with Russia and China at the same time.
And North Korea, all of them. Remember the last one, they added North Korea.
And so, and with China, one of the things, Theodore Postal, Andrei, you know him, don't you?
MIT guy, yeah.
He does some very interesting studies on nuclear warheads and on fusing, and one of the things that he talks about is a new fusing system that's gone on existing.
I know what you're talking about. No, it's not interesting.
Well, you say it's not interesting.
I wrote about it.
It does. Well, according to Theodore Postel, and according to nuclear war planners here in America, which is the only nuclear war planner that matters when we're talking about American nuclear war, it enables us to, instead of putting several warheads on a target, to actually disperse the targets, which we have to do if we're going to be doing a nuclear war against Russia and China at the same time, because where do we come up with the warheads? Right now, we have a nuclear warfighting plan designed to take out Russian mobile missiles, Russian.
Yeah, I wrote about this, yeah.
So it's, my point is that, I'm not saying that it's effective. I'm not saying it's going to win. It doesn't matter. Trump has built a war plan around this idea. And that's why I want to point out to people, Trump built this war plan. So for all the people who are saying, Scott, you're getting ahead of yourself. You don't know how Trump is going to behave. He wrote the war plan. Trump wrote the war plan.
He armed Ukraine, for crying out loud, in his first term.
Yeah. So this idea that Trump is a peacemaker is absurd in the extreme. He's not a peacemaker. He's a war maker. He was preparing for nuclear war. He's the one that rewrote our doctrine to talk about preemptive war, winnable nuclear war. And now we have him coming in with the plans that he initiated 4 years ago reaching maturity. It's not as though he has to be briefed on these plans. He knows these plans. He's the one that led to the changes of the doctrine and the employment strategies. So I'm very, very, very concerned again that Donald Trump is going to think that he can huff and puff and blow the house down with China. China and Russia have a strategic relationship that is predicated on the notion that the United States is an adversary, that the United States is seeking war with both of them. And therefore, they are positioning to prevail in a conventional conflict. And as Andrei said, America doesn't have the number. We can't sustain anything. The bottom line is we don't have enough munitions to fight one war, let alone three at the same time, taking on Russia, taking on Iran, taking on China. Oh, and meanwhile, Marco Rubio wants to go in and take on Venezuela while we're at it. So 4 regional conflicts is what the Trump administration is posturing. Now, they say, oh, he's not going to push for war. But what happens when his policies fail? And they will fail. Nobody in the world today is scared of Donald Trump. Nobody is scared of Donald Trump. And so what happens when he comes in and blusters, brings in this Keystone Cop team that he's assembling, and they come in and say, you must do. Do you remember when Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken met with the Chinese premier early on in Alaska, and they tried to do the, we're America, we're great, and the Chinese went, shut up, we're China, we're better than you are. We will not be lectured by you ever again. It will never happen again. And yet Trump is assembling a team of lecturers who are going to come in. These aren't Russian experts. These aren't people that can sit down with a Sergei Lavrov and have an intellectual conversation. They can't sit down with their Chinese counterpart. All they can do is sit down and bluster and bluff and buffoon. And the Chinese and Russians, you go, we don't want to have this conversation with you. We're not interested in this at all. And then what do? Go back to Trump and say, we failed? Replace us? No, they go into plan B, which is escalate. And then we get into the stupidity of Trump's notion of winnable nuclear war. Escalate to de-escalate. Usable nuclear weapons. Because that's all we have left. When they try the bluff and the bluff fails, there is no conventional military power there that can come in and save the day. It doesn't exist. And so it will be nuclear weapons. And this is why I'm so frustrated, because it didn't have to be this way. There are so many things that could have been done to avoid all of this. Again, the simplest thing Trump could do is call up Putin and say, yeah, we're scrapping the strategic defeat thing. That ain't going to happen. We're done with that. And so now we'd like to sit down with you and see where we go from there. And Putin is a reasonable man. He would say, okay, let's send in Lavrov, make this work. That's what he would say. Make it work. As long as we got rid of that. But if Trump doesn't scrap that, he comes in and he starts flexing and bluffing. This is going to lead to disaster, and we haven't even brought up Iran yet. That he's staffing his team with people that want to go to war with Iran on behalf of Israel, which will lead to a nuclear conflict. I mean, this is bad news all around.
Andrei, your thoughts on this Iran thing? Iran have been saying for a couple of weeks they'll respond, to Israel. But Iran always says we'll do it at a time and place of our choosing, so they don't seem to be in any big rush to. But Iran, from what we've seen, they have been apparently assisted with Russia, and they have indigenous capabilities that are extensive enough to, I believe, to some extent, dominate the region. Your thoughts, and additionally, Russia's pretty tight with Iran. They're kind of starting to get the message out. Look, don't mess with Iran, or we're going to back them. One other thing that I want to throw at you, and you might have heard it. The rumors going around that the Israelis have been calling Moscow, calling the Kremlin, saying, hey, can you help us out? Your thoughts on all of that?
Well, about Israelis, we'll start with this. I mean, and Scott knows this subject way better than me. But yeah, we understand that Israel militarily is in a pickle, or as you say, in deep kimchi. As General Colonel Konstantin Polikovsky called it, the whole mythology of the military might of Israel has been blown, to smithereens. So they are in a desperation mode, and economically too. So naturally, obviously, there are many contacts between, first, quarter of Israeli population are Russian citizens, okay? So that's a huge deal. And the Russians obviously take care of their citizens now, And so they were calling. They are trying to establish contacts, and they do have contacts, obviously, including on the level of military people, serious military people. So I wouldn't be surprised that, I don't think so it's a rumor. I am pretty sure that they did call. That was even in the Israeli press. I believe Haaretz wrote about it, because they want Russia to be part of the solution. And Israel desperately needs solution. And they need somehow some kind of the break to even, have a gasp of the fresh air. Because evidently, from what I heard, I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. That indeed the IDF is on the verge of mutiny, at least in some parts of it. So it's a serious situation. And at this stage, I mean, least of all they want is to attack or deal with Iran. But considering what Iran has towards Israel, Iran may strategically estimate or assess that, okay, we need just teeny weeny little push to take it overboard with the total implosion of the military political top of Israel, and who knows what comes next. So in this case, what could be this push? How about the response? And we know they can take out whatever they want in Israel. So that could be the consideration. I hope that Moscow talks to Tehran and tries to calm things down. And that's the hope will be my idea. Hope of Israel, also that this could be somehow, averted. That's my idea. I could be wrong, of course.
Scott, let me ask you this, because I know you're familiar with this. Everything I'm reading, there's a lot of bluster from the Israelis. They got a lot of tough talk. Every day I read, I look, I research, and it seems like they're getting their asses kicked. It seems like things ain't going good for them, and that there is starting to be internal strife because there are people who are more responsible, which is a term I use loosely when I talk about Israeli leadership, but at least they're saying, hey, man, we things are the wheels are coming off the cart here. But Israel seems to be in collapse, run by a madman who can't seem to accept that things aren't going so well militarily. At any rate, your thoughts on it, just how bad a situation Israel is in internally, militarily, etc.
Well, I just want to remind everybody that in 2022 and 2023, prior to October 7th, Israel ran major exercises. I think the one in 2023 is called Operation Chariots of Fire, which stress tested the IDF's ability to fight a war against all enemies at the same time. And in both cases, it didn't end well. The fact is, it ended with Iranian intervention, and Israel had to have the United States on board. Now, interestingly enough, the United States participated in both exercises, to include in the in-game aspect of it, bringing in tankers and aircraft and doing the simulated strike packages against Iran, etc. But when it came down, push came to shove, we told the Israelis we're not doing that. But the other thing that came in was at the end of each scenario, Israel was confronted with a Samson option type situation. And I just want to remind people what the Samson option is. It's Israel's nuclear employment plan. Israel doesn't have preemptive nuclear strike plans. Israel doesn't believe in limited nuclear war. The Israeli nuclear plan is the Samson option, which is, as Israel goes down, it takes everything down with it. That's the reality. And it's been tested recently. As I said, in 2022 and 2023, they actually had to articulate, the same people, the same players that are there now had to articulate what the next step would be, what the Samson option would be, etc. And so when we talk about Iran pushing Israel over, there is no pushing Israel over. If Israel collapses, the Samson option is initiated. If Israel collapses from outside, there are people in Israel right now that are scared to death about this because they're looking at the situation and they're saying Israel's in free fall. Economically, it's a basket case. The military is stuck. They weren't meant to do what they're doing right now. They're not meant to be fighting in the field for this long. Morale is collapsing, logistically unsustainable. Hezbollah is just kicking the snot out of them. As Israel advances, Israel shows the same captured tunnels over and over and over again, that they captured early on in the fighting. They haven't held a village. They've gone into the villages, and Hezbollah pushes them out of the villages. They try to advance, and they just get waxed. Hezbollah is waiting for them. Hezbollah has the ambushes pre-planned. Hezbollah missiles are continuing to fire. All the people are saying, well, Israel took out Hezbollah's missiles. You realize that Hezbollah is playing an escalation management game. Every day, a new missile is unveiled of greater range and greater capability. that strikes Israel, and Israel can't defend against this. The notion that Hezbollah has been defanged is absurd in the extreme. So now we have a situation. Oh, and it gets even better. I don't know. Did you see Seymour Hersh's recent Substack
No.
about what's going on with Benjamin Netanyahu? He did that briefing the other day where he brought out the Hamas plan. Where he brought out a document. He said this was the Hamas plan for the hostages. Well, two things. One, he violated Israeli law two ways. One, that document is the most sensitive document in Israel today. It's maintained by Amman military intelligence in a room where you have to come in, sign in, and get permission to see it, and then you can only read it in that room. You can't take it with you. Netanyahu went in and got copies of it against the law. So he's in trouble there. There's a judge actively pursuing him right now. Two, he lied to the Israeli people because the way he presented this document, he said this is proof that's because he's saying Sinwar was going to flee to Egypt with the hostages and take them to Iran. But it's a 12-page document. And according to everybody familiar with the they said the next 2 pages after the one that Benjamin Netanyahu quoted was Sinwar saying, this has been suggested to us, but we're not going to do it for the following reasons. So the Israelis know that was a lie, but Netanyahu is lying to the Israeli people. Netanyahu has sabotaged every effort to get the hostages out. This is the end of Netanyahu politically right now. This is a huge crime that he has committed, and there is consequences. Israel's falling in on itself. So now what we have is the Israelis going to Russia because America has failed again. We cannot negotiate an end to this conflict. We have lost all credibility. Nobody trusts us. Nobody believes us. Russia, on the other hand, I think Andrei mentioned it, Garland, you did. A quarter of the population of Israel today is of, Russian or Soviet descent. The Russians have very, very strong ties with Israel. One of the most powerful men in Russia and Israel, Abramovich, is a billionaire, and you say, well, Scott, how could he be powerful? He was in Turkey helping negotiate the release of prisoners of war, and he is a major behind the scenes player. And so Russia has been called upon. And Russia, here's the added advantage of Russia. They can go to Iran and say, okay,
right.
See, Russia can do what America can't, which is to be an effective, trusted mediator with Israel and Iran to try and wind this thing down, because Israel is in free fall, collapse, and the idiot Americans are going to start a war with Iran on behalf of Israel that could end in a nuclear strike. Again, I just want to remind people, the reason why Donald Trump brought in the B-61, the modified one, wasn't to strike Russia, Andrei. It's the bomb that's used to take out Firdos and Natanz. The B-61 gravity bomb is specifically, this version is designed to take out Iranian nuclear targets. That's why they built the weapon. That's what it exists to do. And it's part of the employment plan. So when Trump starts a war with Iran and it goes south, and our 33 bases in the region are on fire and ships are sinking, and they say, Mr. President, we have to go to nuclear option 1001.3, and he rips open the peanut and goes, okay, launch the following codes. It's going to be nuclear weapons, B-61 bombs dropped by F-35 fighters against Iranian nuclear targets. This is the war plan as it exists. Russia is aware of this. And so Russia, I think, has a vested interest in being the trusted broker here. And you know who else is going to play a role in this? Because we come back to the strategic relationship between Russia and China. I can guarantee you that the hotline between Moscow and Beijing is ringing nonstop.
Yeah,
the Russians say, hey, what can you bring to bear on this? What can you do? What can you bring to the table? We need to come in hard diplomatically to bring this thing down. How do we ratchet it down? And one of the things they have to do is convince the Iranians not to attack.
That's pretty much what I think so Moscow is doing right now. It's
Andre, we almost at an hour, but I did want to ask you one last thing. And I know you don't know, but your thoughts on it, because I don't know what it would take to do this. One of the things that we've been seeing lately, every week or two, the Houthis there, or Ansar Allah, whatever you want to call them in Yemen, are shooting down another one of these MQ-9 Reaper drones, right? They've been shooting those. They're up to about 8 or 10 of these things now, right? And then one of the big global Hawk 130 million, they're shooting these drones down. I didn't even know they had anti-aircraft capabilities. What kind of anti-aircraft capabilities do you think the Houthis have, and what does it take? I mean, I know these things aren't exactly B-52s or, stealth fighters, don't get me wrong, but what kind of level of technology does it take to shoot them down? I don't know. And your thoughts on that?
Good old S-200, good old Buk M1, good old Hassan. So it doesn't take much to really shoot them down. They are slow. And by the way, Reaper is actually kind of done with the stealth technology. It has the carbon fiber body, fuselage, and things like that. It has smaller signature, obviously, but yeah, you can see it, especially when you have the meter diapason or even decimeter diapason radar, which they do have from since good old Soviet times. And yeah, that is why they shoot them down, because they have it. So what was the deal with the missiles? Because obviously missiles go, they get spoiled, they have expiration date. Hey, you know what? If you have the liquid missiles, for example, like V600, famous S-75 complex, yeah, it's liquid, all right. So just say, fuel it and just shoot at it. That's what it is. It's
so Iran has their own. I know they have the Buks and things like that, and they have some knockoff their own indigenous stuff.
Oh, plenty. Yeah, they have plenty of complexes. Yeah,
right. So it sounds like to me maybe Iran's providing them. I do know that Hezbollah's done. So that maybe Iran provides these people with some of their indigenous stuff, and it's adequate.
Absolutely. You can have Iran has their, well, you can say knockoff, but they have their own version. It's definitely on the more advanced elemental base. It's not vacuum tubes anymore.
Right.
So it is solid body. But they have their they are even visually similar. Their Asa. It's a 11-kilometer range, short distance. It's pretty modern enough to shoot down like 5-6 kilometer flying Reaper or Global Hawk, no problem. So, and again, they have a very good radar, and they can track those easily.
Okay. Well, guys, it's been an hour, so I certainly appreciate you taking busy time out of your week. Scott, everyone, go to scottritter.com. Scott's good work is there. And of course, when you go there, share that with everybody on your social media platform. And don't forget, everybody's got to feed the old families. We haven't heard the dogs barking in the back, so they probably got a full belly, and we want to keep it that way. Go to scottritter.com and make sure you donate. Andrei Martyanov, Smoothie X12. He's got his blog. He's got his great, fantastic YouTube show. I never miss one. And he's got his own Patreon there. So if you like Andrei stuff, which you will, then you're going to become a Patreon member. Thanks a lot, guys. Certainly appreciate it.
Buy Andrei's new book.
Oh, I forgot. Yes. Andrei, what is it?
Yeah. So, sorry?
Oh, your new book. Tell them about it real quick before we
go. No. I mean, that's America's Final War. This is pretty much what we've been talking about. And by the way, buy Scott's and Anya's book too. One of the best strategic insights out there. So
what's your Scott, your book? What is it called?
It's called Covering Ukraine. It's done. Anya Kay interviewed me, and we took the interview.
It's excellent. And it gives the good timestamp, so to speak, for the events of special military operations. So one of the best.
As we, here's the deal. We're getting close to January 20th, when there's going to be a transition in power, and starting on January 20th. We're not going to be able to talk theoretically about what Trump's going to do. We're going to be confronted with the reality of what Trump is doing. And people are going to need a foundation of knowledge about the consequences, how we got there, what could happen. And Andrei's book explains war and explains the military equation better than anything out there. So for all the people out there, understand this. On January 21st, everybody's been going, what the hell's going on? Andrei's book helps answer that. And Ukraine is a very complicated problem, or can be. But what Anya and I did is put together a thorough book, but it's readable. It's not long. It's short. So it's sort of a crash course, the cheater's guide to a PhD on the Ukrainian conflict. So I think between these two, both these books, which are published by Clarity Press, I think they will get you up to speed so that you can at least be knowledgeable about.
They have their foundation. Bottom line, absolutely. I cannot, recommend enough. And I wrote their foreword, by the way.
Okay.
Yes,
Covering Ukraine, Scott Ritter and Anya Kay, and of course, America's Final War, Andrei Martyanov. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot, everybody. It is important that you guys share this on all your social media platforms. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Rockman in case the unthinkable happens. And as I said, follow both of these guys. Thanks a lot. We're out.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.